Hi, Tracey. Thank you so much for joining us today to talk a little bit around business legals. I was hoping you could just start with a little bit of an intro on who you are and what your what TMSolicitor does.
Of course. Tania, thank you so much for having me. I'm so happy to be here chatting with you about this. So in short, I am a business lawyer and I'm basically on a mission to empower every business owner I meet to back themselves legally. So we do things very differently here at TMSolicitor. It's not the traditional law practice. It's not one of those law practices where, you need to book out half a day in your diary and make the trip in to sit in front of your lawyer. We operate virtually, so our clients are all over the country, and we focus on prevention being better than cure for small business owners. So we want to work with business owners to set themselves up properly so they don't need to call us later when something goes wrong.
I love it. That's awesome. That's exactly what Unicorn Club strives to do. And we talk about legals, what type of insurances you need, how to set up your business entity correctly. And it's all that stuff that people don't know they need to know when they start a business. I've got a question for you. What are the things that new business owners really need to nail when they first start in terms of legals?
That is such a great question. So once new business owners have got their head around their business structure, I say to business owners, there are 3 core documents that you need as a business owner to 1, be legally compliant, and 2, set yourself up for long-term success and get some peace of mind happening, knowing that you are protected and compliant. And so those 3 documents are, firstly, your business terms and conditions. So that can be called anything that you want as a business owner. It can be your client service agreement, your coaching agreement, your design agreement, whatever suits your business, but they are ultimately your business terms and conditions. So the document that outlines how clients are working with you, that's number 1. That is the most important document for any small business. The second one is your website terms and conditions. I think it's about 98% of small businesses these days have websites. So we do need website terms and conditions, and they are different to your business terms and conditions. And the third document is your privacy policy. So those 3 are the core fundamentals for business owners.
So very often when people start businesses, they go onto their competitor's website and they nick the terms and conditions from there and adjust them and pop them on their website. Let's have a chat about whether that's a good idea or not.
Fabulous. I love talking about that. And I'm glad you've asked. It is a question that I get asked a lot. And the reality is, as you said a moment ago, we don't know what we don't know as business owners. And that's okay. We're not expected to know all of the things, but we do need to know where to go for our information. No is the answer. You shouldn't do that. You shouldn't just go and find somebody else's terms and copy them. But lots of people do. No criticism, no judgment. Like I said, we don't know what we don't know. We're doing the best that we can. But the problem is, there's a couple of problems with that. First of all, it's a copyright issue. You actually can't copy somebody else's work at law. You're breaching or infringing their copyright. So 1, you're at risk of doing that, so don't do it. 2, you don't know that their terms and conditions are doing all the things that it's supposed to for their business. So you've got no way of knowing whether or not they're going to suit your business. And what I see is clients that do try to leverage off somebody else's terms and conditions. They don't know whether or not they're compliant or whether or not they're protected, but they just use them anyway. So it's because of that not knowing. So you're leaving yourself exposed, because the whole point of terms and conditions is to protect you and make sure you're compliant. Now, you're not actually going to know whether you are protected or whether you are compliant until you need to rely on them. By then, if your T's and C's aren't doing what they're supposed to, they're worthless and it's all too late. So it's the peace of mind factor as well. So you want to be professional, you want to be compliant, and you want to be legally protected. Your T's and C's are the documents to do that for you. There's no shortcuts here. So people that follow me would have heard me say time and time again, DIY is for Bunnings, not for your legals. And those are the reasons why. So best intentions and all of that, but these documents are the documents that are going to be the pillars of your business. So best to invest in those and get it done properly once, rather than just slapping something together and hoping that your competitor down the road has done the right thing and that you're protected, because chances are you won't be, because they won't be suited to your business.
I love that. DIYs for Bunnings. That's very cool.
It is. It's so on point, because lots of people ask me, gosh, do I really need to do this? Do I really need to invest in this for my business? Because surely somebody else has done it good enough. It's a big gamble. So honestly, keep DIY for the weekends is what I always say.
That's right. It's a small investment up front. Because if you get yourself unstuck with your terms and conditions, it can cost you a lot down the track to fix that mistake.
Oh, absolutely. And it's not just the cost to rectify the documents, it's the cost of not having that protection in place. So with small businesses, particularly newer small businesses, it only takes one dispute or one client or service provider that takes issue with the small business to bring the whole thing unstuck. I've seen it time and time again. When you're embroiled in a dispute, when there's misaligned expectations, or just when something's gone wrong in relation to either paying an invoice that you're owed, or an invoice that you have to pay somebody else, when something falls off the rails, that can be enough to derail a small business, because it's not just the cost of that invoice, it's your time and your energy and the money you need to spend to have it rectified. So if you think about it like this, if you're devoting your time and energy to deal with this issue because your terms and conditions aren't in place or they're not up to scratch, that's time and energy that you're not spending doing the work in your business, generating revenue, or taking steps to grow your business. So there is a real cost here, which goes well beyond the amount of the dispute or the amount of the invoice where there's some misaligned expectations, if you like. It's far reaching.
And reputational damage comes into that as well, which can also make or break a business if people jump on social media and have a chat about what happened. And so you do want to get that right. You did mention there's a difference between your terms and conditions on your website and your business terms and conditions. Can we talk about that a bit more?
Absolutely. Your business terms and conditions are the terms that outline how you're going to work with your client when you're providing your service. So what you're doing, what you're not doing, your payment terms, your indemnities, your warranties, your dispute resolution clause, it governs that relationship. And if done properly, it sets you up as a small business owner for a long-term positive relationship with your client. Because in that space of your business T's and C's, you're managing the client's expectations and you're explaining how you're going to deliver your services. Now, if you do that well, if you do it professionally, all of a sudden you're developing your reputation and you're developing your long-term relationships with your clients. That's your business terms and conditions. Your website terms and conditions are very different because they govern the rules that somebody's bound by when they land on your website. So if you are a service provider and on your website you have details about who you are, the services you provide, perhaps a freebie, you might sell courses, you might have paid downloadables, you might have a blog, or if you're a creative, you might have photographic works of your work. The website terms and conditions govern what people can and can't do with that. It protects your intellectual property. It protects your reputation in terms of saying that you can't just download my blogs or copy and paste them, because believe me, that happens. Copycat is a big thing that is seen to be happening more and more at the moment because we're all pivoting, I suppose, to online businesses and we're doing a lot more digital marketing. Copycat is an issue. So we need to make sure that everything that we're putting on our website is protected in terms of our IP, for a start, in terms of protecting us from misaligned expectations where we might have blogs on our website or we might say certain things in our testimonials in relation to what we're going to offer you as services. We're actually just providing you with information. It's not professional advice. You can't go and take something off our website, rely on it. It doesn't pan out the way you thought, so you come back and seek recourse against us, i.e. sue. The website terms and conditions structure all of that and protect you from all of those scenarios where sometimes things can go wrong. So you see, they're very different.
Yeah. Thank you for explaining that. I think a lot of people miss either one or the other when they first set up a business. You spoke about privacy policy as one of the key documents that you need to get right. Again, this is something that goes on a website. Does it only go on your website?
It'll always start on the website. Most of the time, business owners will get their privacy policy tailored to their business. They will put it on the website, and then when they need to refer to it in other documents, client retainers or disclosure documents, you can just link back to it on the website. So provided you have it on the website, you are legally compliant, because we have in this country a thing called the Privacy Act. And it's Commonwealth legislation, which means it applies to us regardless of what state or territory we're operating in. And the Privacy Act is currently under review. So historically, there were certain exclusions for smaller businesses where the Privacy Act would exclude a smaller business from needing to have a privacy policy on display. That's under review. It looks like those exclusions are going to be removed. So what does that mean? It means that it is absolute best practice for a small business to have a privacy policy. Why? Because we're collecting personal data. So on our website, if we have a contact us page, for example, where people can pop through a message, or if we have a subscribe to our newsletter or our blog, if we're collecting any information like that, it's caught by the Privacy Act as personal data. And many years ago, websites and organizations were collecting that personal data and then selling it. You're not allowed to do that. So because we are living in a digital world and more of us are moving to online platforms, we must comply with the Privacy Act, which essentially will tell consumers what we're going to do with your personal data and what we're not going to do with it. And of course, lots of business owners say to me, oh, I'm not going to do anything with it. I'm not going to worry about the Privacy Act. That is problematic, because if you get audited, or if a complaint is made against you, which does happen, believe it or not, to say you're not complying with the Privacy Act, there can be consequences for a small business. So my view is, when getting your website terms and conditions done, you have a privacy policy prepared for you at the same time. And then there's 2 big ticket items that you've ticked off, and you don't need to worry about again, because you're now compliant and protected. But of course, these days, and it's not just me, I'm sure, these days when we land on a new business's website, of course, one of the things we do is scroll to the bottom to see whether or not this business has got their stuff together. Have they got a privacy policy, and have they got website T's and C's? And when they do, it gives an impression of elevated professionalism, in my view, because it says to us, this business knows what they're doing. They've got it together. Fantastic. When they don't, discussions that I'm having with colleagues and in my circles, it raises eyebrows, because we think to ourselves, is this a fly by the seat of your pants business? Is this business going to be around long term? Do they really know what they're doing? It raises eyebrows and questions are asked. So there's so many reasons as to why I think you really need those documents on your website, and to get them done properly, or else it's just a waste of time and money.
I agree with you. I also look for that when I go to a website. And to me, it's a measure of professionalism and whether that business is following best practices in terms of how they set up and how they operate, because you can tell a lot from a business's website when you first go onto it as to whether they are a professional outfit, I think.
Absolutely. I agree wholeheartedly. And I'm so happy to hear you say that. We're on the same page, and more people are joining into that way of thinking.
Yeah. So, Tracey, what are some of the things that you've seen recently that are really tripping up new business owners and causing them some hassles out there that could have been avoided in the first place?
Honestly, hand on heart, it's not having business T's and C's in place. So the most common issue that clients have when they come to me is, I have a client who won't pay me. It happens all the time. And the reason for that is not because somebody's being malicious or trying to do the wrong thing. It's largely because of misaligned expectations. Mm-hmm. So a service provider is engaging with a client, fantastic. At the beginning of the relationship, there's loads of enthusiasm. They dive in, they do their best work, they issue the invoice, and the client's expectations are not met, or there's a misalignment somewhere. So you thought one thing, the client thought something else, and then all of a sudden The client's no longer happy, but they're disgruntled and you're having difficulty being paid. So as a service-based business, or even product-based businesses, they get paid obviously before products are dispatched. But as a service-based business, you're entitled to request or include in your business payment terms non-refundable deposits, progress payments, milestone payments, 50% upfront, 50% upon finalisation, or if you're a creative, the balance paid before you release the files. There's a whole range of ways that you can ensure payment and cash flow are not going to be an issue. But if you don't outline it for the client, and if you are not crystal clear on what it is you will be doing for the client, you really do run the risk of reaching the end and then there being a hiccup or there being an issue. And I find that more often than not, that happens to business owners who say, oh, I've got a really great relationship with this client. They're so lovely. That won't happen to me. That is when it happens, which is very unfortunate. But being tripped up, it starts and ends with the business T's and C's. It really does, in my experience.
It's really important to ask a lot of questions during that engagement phase to make sure that as the client, you understand the deliverables and you understand the process that you'll be going through. It happens so often that there is that misalignment between what's being delivered, because the service provider understands their process and understands exactly what they're delivering. The client doesn't. The client has an idea of what they want. And very often those two don't match up. So I always spend a lot of time with the service provider just asking all the sort of dumb questions.
That's right. And if the service provider has properly drafted and properly tailored terms and conditions for their business, then when you receive those as a client, you read them, and then all of a sudden, all of your questions are answered, all of the gaps are filled, and you know exactly what to expect, and you know exactly how this relationship is going to develop. That's ultimately what needs to be achieved by those business terms and conditions, because then you are significantly reducing the chance that the client comes to you later and says, oh, but I thought you were going to do this as well. Scope creep is significant as for service-based businesses, and those terms and conditions help you navigate that and contain that and keep it to an absolute minimum, if not eliminate it.
Absolutely. Tracey, when we first chatted, we spoke about business owners often think it's a decadent thing to engage a lawyer when you first start your business, because you haven't got any revenue coming in, or you might have very little revenue and you've got to turn every penny over 2 or 3 times. There are a lot of services out there today that have sort of a subscription model for legal help. And also, you can go online and answer a couple of questions and get terms and conditions emailed to you. It does seem like a way to keep your costs down, but to me, it must be fraught with danger as well, because there are the questions they don't ask you because it's a one-size-fits-all. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I agree. Look, I think you need to seek guidance and advice based on where you're at. So if you're running your 6th business, you've been down this road before, you're litigated on terms and conditions, you know the risks, and all you need is some form of template from a DIY legal template provider. If you've been in this for a long, long time and you know exactly what your T's and C's need to do and you know where the pitfalls are, then that will be perfectly fine for you. But most of the time, that's not most small business owners. And I go back to what we said earlier, which is we don't know what we don't know. So I get clients coming to me often saying, I've just purchased this template. I don't understand it. I have no confidence, and I don't know if this is going to do all the things I need it to do. Can you help me? And of course, the answer is yes. But guess what? They've just paid twice. They've just paid twice, once for the template because they thought it would be cheaper. And then secondly, for me to jump in and do them for them because, of course, the template didn't hold water and it wasn't suitable to their business. So, my view is, because of what I've seen over the 15 or so years I was involved in litigation and dispute resolution, because I've seen what can go wrong for business owners, your business legals is not where you ought to be shortcutting. And that doesn't mean you need to go and take a bank loan to get these things done. My view is you need to find a lawyer that fits with you. There's lawyers and there's lawyers. So taking the time to talk to a few and seeing if they're the right fit, and then having the conversation. Ask for a payment plan. You know, there's always more than one way to skin a cat, in my view, but this is the sort of thing that needs to be prioritized, because if you don't have your T's and C's done properly, you can't possibly have peace of mind in your business, and you just don't know when something's going to pop up and bring you unstuck. It's just not worth it, in my view.
And a good lawyer would structure it so that you do understand it. It should be easy to read, right? It shouldn't be full of legal jargon that kind of doesn't make sense to anybody. If you're receiving a document like that, you're well within your rights to then ask all the questions and ask for those terms to be amended into easier language, because you do want your clients to really understand what you're saying.
Oh, absolutely. If they can't understand it, then the document's worthless. But if you're working with a good lawyer who knows what they're doing, then you should not be having to ask the questions. They'll be taking you through it. My process is quite involved. So, you know, I'm not the right lawyer for somebody who wants to spend 30 minutes on this, do a quick tick and flick, and then just upload it or roll it out to clients and not really understand it. That's not what I do. I'm not the right lawyer for that person. I make sure in our processes that we have a conversation at the front end of the relationship, so I can really understand the business. I need to understand what you do, what the pain points are, what your concerns are, and what's really important to your business, and what are your business values. From there, we draft a set of terms and conditions for you. Often we do a suite of documents. So your business T's and C's and your website documents. We get your logo from you, we get your color palette, we get your font preferences, because these documents are an extension of your business. They need to look like that too. So they should be branded, and they should be in language that works for you, because it's not one size fits all. Then I'll provide my clients with a draft of that, and we arrange a Zoom session. We'll always allow an hour, and we go through it. I want to explain these to you. I want you to know, by the time we finish working together, I want you to know exactly what these documents do and exactly how to use them. So then we go away, we finalize, we tweak, we amend as required, and present the final version. So it's a 4-step process there, but it's a process that's designed to empower the business owner, so that by the time they've got their brand new business documents or their legals, they know what to do with them, they know how to use them, and they have complete confidence and can be really proud issuing them and rolling them out each time clients come to do business with them. That's what the process should look like. Anything less than that, unless you've been in business for a long, long time and you know exactly what you're doing, I'd question the extent of whether or not those documents are going to work for you.
That's awesome. Thank you, Tracey. Thank you for sharing so generously today. And I know that you also share quite a lot of information on your podcast. What is your podcast? Where does someone find your podcast to subscribe?
Absolutely. I've got a podcast and the resources page on our website, which answers lots of questions as well. So you can find all of that on our website, which is TMSolicitor.com.au, or you can search for the podcast on any of the podcast platforms, and it's called Rise Up in Business.
I've listened to a couple of episodes and I'm totally hooked. So thank you.
Oh, fantastic.
It's very helpful.
Thank you.
And nice to listen to, easy listening.
It's designed that way. Typically law and all things legal can be very dry and very boring. So I do try to deliver short and sharp, valuable, easy to understand content. So thank you, Tania. I'm so pleased for that feedback.
Thank you, Tracey.